one thing I recommend you do is get a pen and paper, or even better, get an A4 pad of paper. Something fairly permanent. Not one of these scrap notebooks that you can throw away, but a nice A4 binder or something. And write everything down. Write everything down. Every little insight, feeling, thought that comes to you. This means write down your confusions. Write down your frustrations. Write down the revelations. Write down the insights. Put a date and time on everything. I was thinking about my process as a seeker, and so much of it happened so long ago, I can't remember much of it. I've forgotten so much of it. And often as I'm having conversations with people, it reminds me, oh yeah, I used to do that. Oh yeah, I used to do this. Oh yeah, I used to do that. I remember in my teens and my 20s, I used to write down so much, and it was so helpful. My problems, my revelations. The mind, you see, is so fickle. The mind is so fickle. It'll have an amazing realization on Monday, and by Thursday, it will have completely forgotten what that revelation is. And it'll have a new revelation on Thursday, and then by Saturday, it would have forgotten both those ones. The Monday revelation and the Thursday revelation. And then you'll have a new revelation on Sunday, and so on. And this is the way the mind works, the ego. It keeps you chasing. I've got a new revelation. I've got a new revelation, a new insight. What were the old insights? Don't worry about them. I've got a new one for you. You go round in circles, round and round in circles, with the frustration, the confusion, alternating with clarity and insight. There's a method to this madness. The ego has a method to keep you going round in circles. And one of the tools the ego uses is that the ego forgets, the mind forgets what it has learned. You write it all down. You look back, you say, oh, I've been there before. Oh yeah, I remember that trick. You did that there. And I've dated it. On the 8th of April, you did that trick, I remember. I'm not falling for that one again. And the ego sphere, the sphere that the ego operates in, it shrinks. You're closing it in. It gets fewer and fewer tricks. Fewer and fewer tricks. You start to learn how the ego works, how the mind works, how it fools you, how it keeps you going, why you keep on making the same mistake again and again and again, or same mistakes again and again and again. So, pray at the beginning. This is why at the beginning of all the scriptures, the Vedanta scriptures, they have a prayer, an invocation. Why? Just for fun? Just for tradition? No. There's utility. It works. Try it. You find out for yourself if you don't know already. I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm just offering you some things that have worked for me. You pray. Allow yourself to love God, love Guru, love yourself. Have faith in God, have faith in Guru, have faith in your own nature, your own self, what you are. This love alone will solve a lot of your problems. Blast through a lot of the constriction, anxiety, worry. And then wait for the answer. Pray, listen and wait, and then write everything down. If you don't know where to start, if you're thinking, gosh, I don't even know where to start, what do I write? What do you write? You write, I don't know even where to start. I don't even know what to write down. You write down whatever's going on. You think yourself, this is a load of rubbish. This spirituality, I'm fed up with this now. I've been doing this for however long. Is any of it real? You write it down. I'm fed up with this rubbish. I'm fed up with this spirituality. Yeah. If you have a particular insight, you write it down. You have the same insight again 5 minutes later. Don't say, oh, I've written it down 5 minutes ago. I'm not going to write it down again. You might say, well, I've already written that one down. I'm not going to write it down again. Write it down again. Why? Probably the wording will be slightly different. Or the feeling will be slightly different as you write it. It's a process. It's not just a record, it's a process. You know how sometimes you can hear the same teaching again and again and again. But one time it really hits home. For some reason. It's the same with this. You write it down, the insight comes again, you write it again. You'll start to see patterns. You'll start to see through the ego. You'll start to see its illusory nature. You'll start to see how it keeps you trapped. And your knowledge will not be book knowledge. Your knowledge, your understanding, your wisdom will be based on your own experience. And so it becomes unshakable. Unshakable.
If by following your advice, writing down, pray and everything, we don't perpetuate this illusionary jiva, personality, whatever you call it, it's not like we give more gas to this guy, we give more food, let's say, to this imaginary character by doing that? This is
Yeah,
the question.
that's a great question, because the first time I remember when I was writing, that's exactly what I used to think. I used to think, am I just perpetuating this ego? You know, am I just, the teachings are about silence, stillness of mind, and I'm scribbling down like a journalist. You know, I'm writing 100 miles per hour, all my thoughts on a piece of paper. What's going on? Now, you're right in a way, in the sense that when you're writing down, when you're engaging that, you are perpetuating the jiva. You are. So why am I recommending it? Well, first of all, if you try it, you'll find out for yourself if it how it works, if it works for you. We can't always say that one teaching is right for everybody. So when I share things with you, I rely on each person here to try it out for themselves and see if it works for them. And if it doesn't work, then don't listen to me, please. I don't mind. I'm offering different tools, I guess, at different times. and you can see what works for you. But this is a very powerful method, a very powerful technique. Why? If it perpetuates the jiva, perpetuates the ego. And remember, I think everyone in the call knows jiva basically means the notion of being a separate body-mind entity. It's the same thing as ignorance. Sanskrit word meaning I'm the body-mind, essentially. So if this perpetuates the jiva, why am I recommending it? Well, is silence the way? Yes, silence is the way. So why am I recommending writing? Well, put it this way. If your sadhana, if your spiritual practice is strong, you're abiding in silence, your self-inquiry is successful and growing by the day, then what will happen? Writing is going to impede that. It will get in the way. It will take you out of self-inquiry, self-abidance. It will take you out of abiding as the self and take you into being a journalist, writing down your thoughts, reporting on the thoughts, scribbling down on an A4 piece of paper. But most people are not successful in their self-inquiry. Most people are not, especially most people who are coming to satsangs. There will be exceptions, of course. But people are seeking answers. If you're a seeker, it means you haven't found. So you'll find that what's happening, if you haven't found what you're looking for, there's only one reason. And that's because you haven't seen through the tricks of the ego and the fundamental illusion of duality. Now the ego, or also known as thinking, uses various tricks. The thought process, when it comes to things like jiva, Brahman, spirituality, when it comes to non-duality, the thought process is essentially insincere. It's not truthful. It lies. It deceives. It deludes. The whole of illusion, the whole of Maya is in the mind, in thought. The whole of ignorance, the whole of suffering is in Maya, the mind, thought. And it's very difficult to see through this illusion for most people. When you start writing things down, you will spot patterns and trends that the mind is not able to capture by itself. The mind changes so quickly, it's so fickle. One day it's thinking this, one day it's thinking that. One day it's feeling this, one day it's feeling that. It changes, it changes so quickly. Yeah. If you thought the British weather was bad, the mind is far, far worse. Especially in April. The British weather is all over the place in April. It snowed earlier this week, and then it was really, really hot. Well, not really hot, but by British standards, pretty hot a few days prior to that. Today it was freezing in the morning, and then it was really warm in the afternoon. And I think it's getting colder again now. The mind is way, way worse. The mind is changing. Literally, in the morning you can feel you're enlightened, and in the afternoon you can feel suicidal, you know? And then in the evening you just want to sit down, have a cup of tea and watch Netflix. You know? This is how insightful the mind is. Basically, it's not very insightful. When you write it down, it's a massive tool. It helps you so much. Another analogy I can use is if you've ever done maths. Now, I studied maths. I went on to study maths in the UK to what's called A level until I was 18, and I enjoyed maths. And when you're doing maths, it's not so much about a calculator. It's about working through a problem methodically. You have a problem. It might be a complex problem. If you try to do it in your head, there's no way you could do it. It's too complicated. But just using very simple ideas in maths, you just work through, nothing complicated, no difficult mental arithmetic, no need to use a difficult calculator. You can work through slowly, step by step, and you get the right answer. Why? Because of pen and paper. The pen and paper, they greatly enhance our thinking process. Some of you might think, gosh, isn't Tom overstating this a bit? I would just say try it. See, let me know. But if you're really well on your way, you're doing your self-inquiry, you're abiding every day, you are seeing through the illusion, the suffering's going, you don't need to use the pen and paper. You just abide as the self. Pen and paper is a part of what is Shravana and Manana, listening to the teachings, reflecting upon the teachings. Shravana and Manana, very important part of the teaching. That's why it's there. Shravana means listening. Manana means thinking or reflecting on the teachings. And it's incredibly important because it's that, on the path of knowledge at least, which leads us into self-inquiry. There are other ways into self-inquiry. There are two basic ways into self-inquiry, or two basic ways to liberation. One is through faith. The other is through wisdom or understanding. And if you go through understanding, there's a process of thinking, contemplating that comes before self-inquiry. The path of faith or the path of love, the guru tells you to do the practice. You, for some reason, are blessed with faith in the teaching and you are able to do it, and you do it. Somehow, something like this. Then you don't need pen and paper. You don't need pen and paper. But if you're a seeker and you're thinking about the teachings, you're confused about the teachings, you're probably on the path of knowledge. Of course, all these paths are arbitrary, they'll come together. And pen and paper can be very helpful.